The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning for the Arena Group and Magna Systems webinar on change management. Just 1 second, just get the next slide for you. Okay, I'm Neil Maud from Arena Group. I'm Director of Technology here. I head up the team which delivers document management solutions into the automotive market. I'm joined this morning by Paul Mellings from Magna Systems. I'll just ask Paul to introduce himself in a moment, but just to tell you a little bit about me, I'm Director of Technology. I've been with Arena for 25 years now. As I say, I look after the team which delivers information and document management solutions. We deliver those solutions across a number of markets. But a particular focus for us is automotive, where we bring systems into dealerships to help people manage their sales process, manage their after-sales process, and get their documentation under control. So that's a little bit about me. Paul, you just want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Neil. My name is Paul Mellings. Good morning and good afternoon to some of the colleagues that I know have joined from the Middle East region. My background is nearly 30 years now within the automotive, from working in stores through to IT solution companies. And now we, in the last sort of 5 years, look at sort of business consultancy to support automotive and other areas of businesses to do project management, change management, and business consultancy.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, yes, and yes, good afternoon to people joining us from other time zones. It's a pretty global event we've got going on today. Okay, I'll just run very quickly through the agenda. As you can see up on screen, we've done the introductions already, so we're past that bit. I'm just going to talk a little bit about setting the scene in a moment, and then I'm going to hand to Paul, who will take us through some change management practices, some great ideas as to how to manage change successfully in your organisation. We'll then come back and have a summary and some Q&A time. The format for this morning is going to be very chatty, informal question and answers. If you have got some questions, please do post them in the webinar boxes on there in the chat or the questions area. We have our marketing team who are just keeping an eye on this, and we'll be feeding questions through to us. So the more questions we get, the better, and we've got plenty of time for Q&A at the end. And we'll maybe just jump in with some of those as we're going through the slides as well. So some of the imperatives, why we're here, why are we talking about change management? I think it's really important to understand, change needs to be there for a purpose. We're not just doing change for change's sake. There are imperatives in our market space which mean that we need to handle change. We have coming at us a number of different mega trends almost economically that we see listed out there. Regulation compliance is a big thing in the UK at the moment around financing, but we're just going to see that it's going to keep coming at us. A couple of years ago we had GDPR. There'll be something else in a couple of years as well. That's going to be an ongoing process. Customer expectations. We're increasingly living in a digital world, and I think our automotive space is doing some things pretty well, some things that could happen a little bit more frictionless from a customer point of view. We're all aiming towards this digitalization of our business to make it a seamless process, because that's where competitive edge comes from. We are under margin pressure. We are looking to do more with less. Okay, and with all of this, there's a little bit of uncertainty. What's happening next? We've got this wonderful Brexit thing coming for those in the UK. So we've got a lot of different themes there which are coming together to mean we are constantly changing things in our business. And it's really important that we get that right, do that efficiently, because otherwise we can stumble and lose that important competitive edge piece. So those are some of the imperatives. I mean, I think the fact that we're on this webinar means that we're agreed that there is a requirement for change, but let's figure out how to do that well. So I'm now going to hand on to Paul, who's going to do the best bit of the presentation, the meaty bit around change management.
Thank you, Neil. Okay, so the first element I'm going to go through is sort of the techniques and the technical bit about why we do that. And hopefully during this sort of presentation, we'll give you some real life examples, so that it's not just a theory. It is some real life examples of some good and some bad ways of we've encountered through in change management. And we're always learning as well. We're always looking at different practices and different ways we fine-tune this. So this is not a one-size-fits-all here. This is something that we will look at on a constant basis and keep updating and modifying. So what does change management mean? So fundamentally, the sort of theory behind this is we have a discipline that guides how we prepare, equip and support individuals to successfully adopt change in order to hit organisational change. Normal case of events is top down. Someone says, this is what we're going to change, this is what we're going to do, whether it's a process, product, you get told basically this is what's going to happen. And then the mindset very much then goes in, oh, what does this mean for me? If we look specifically at DMS systems, what does the change management mean when migrating to a new DMS system? So we're trying to look to see what people do today. We map to what they want to do from a blueprint point of view. So we ask questions around, what do you want that picture and that future to look around? And that could be driven by OEMs, that could be driven by group policies, that might just be a department change and a department policy that we want to change. It could be a legal and fiscal thing as well that we want to or we have to do as part of ongoing situations like that. So we need to look what we're looking to achieve, and fundamentally that past experience sort of tells us that sometimes when we're changing to new DMS systems or any sort of product that comes in, the product it's a product-led activity rather than a process-led activity. So what we try and do is say, let's look at what we're trying to achieve and then get the system or product to underpin what we're trying to achieve, not be the main driver behind this. Then this leads to preparing the organisation. Massively important sort of communication. Training is, as you can imagine, is terribly undervalued and probably the thing that when people are looking at it, they cut. The traditional way of putting people in training rooms for days on end, those things have changed now. There's so many different ways of training people. Again, in past experiences, we find short, sharp training sessions is something that's more effective and fits into people's daily lifestyles. Certainly, if you look at the automotive space, everyone runs around 100 miles an hour, so we have to be very optimal in the time that we're training people. Because they're more concerned in, what's my day-to-day operation going to be? So we focus really on making sure that people are trained and allocate the right time to do that training. We look at the go-live support aspects. That's the sort of technical migration piece. And once we've done that, we don't put a lot of emphasis or try and put a lot of emphasis into doing too much. Simplistically, we need to get people to do what they do today on that go live date or when that transition over to that go live date. If we try and do too much, it tends to, as past experience, people explode. Our customers, more importantly, see that situation, and we try and avoid the situation where we've probably all been into various places. Please bear with us today while we move over to a new computer system. Why would our customers worry about that? So there's ways of and means of how to do that. The optimization piece is people band around optimization, but what does it really mean? This is the realizable benefits. This is where we actually get, once we get the level platform in place, we're now really looking to really push on. The reason why we're changing is probably monetary, so there has to be a return on investment. If we're not getting a return on investment, why are we doing this? And there are times when we've actually stopped projects because actually there's no realizable benefit for the cost to change. So we do look at this quite in-depthly as well. So the strategic and tactics to do this, it's a thoughtful and careful alignment of organisation and processes based on those answers. So we spend a lot of time and really just analysing what the change means. When we go into a little bit more detail, I will go through those. But we get to know the people and we get to know their current processes. We don't go in and give, this is what your new system or process is going to do. We don't give the end result. We try and work out how we're going to put the new product or service into that particular store by asking a series of questions that isn't intrusive. It's not a time and motion study. It is very much get to know the people and how they do their role today, and then we map how that's going to improve efficiencies or changes that need to be done. The problem we have with change is certain times everyone comes in on a particular morning, they have a various routine of doing this, they have a routine of dealing with customers, and we're going to basically shake that up. What does it lead to if we don't do this properly? We have uncertainty. People think change is coming in. People straight away think of jobs. Think, oh, how's it going to affect me? Oh, I'm not going to be able to, be in a position anymore. Normally has poor communication. As many times we've all probably walked into a store, into a customer says, "Hi, I'm Paul today. I'm come from Magna Systems. We're going to be looking at this. Oh, we didn't know you were coming today." So information about what's going to happen, also preparation about what's going to happen as well is the key. Sometimes comes into power play, oh, we're going to change, that means I have to protect myself against certain things, and that has happened. And hopefully not too much chaos at the end of that.
Yeah, hi Paul. If I just jump in there, because I mean, I find these problems of change really interesting. It's something we see a lot when we are deploying an MStore document management solution into an organisation, particularly in terms of the sort of the uncertainty and the chaos bits. Not anything we're doing with the systems, but just the nature of the change that we're working through, because quite often we're going from paper to a digital system, and there's a big visibility element there which can be quite scary and quite off-putting for people, and it's something that we work really hard to tackle, because, and I'm quite glad the webinar attendees can't see the paper we have on our desk, but taking away the paper and deal files, service files, and actually having that in a digital process, you do leave people that, oh, what am I going to do tomorrow morning? How's that going to look? And maybe actually I can just make it a bit easier by keeping a few bits of paper in the desk drawer that nobody knows about, and booking the system. And it's it falls into that power element there. And also, and we'll come back to this in the Q&A session. I was really interested when you were talking about the availability. I mean, we shouldn't forget that during a change process, I think that people are there to do a job. They don't. They're employed for those number of hours a week to do that job, and there often isn't time, either at management or operational level, to spend lots of time doing training sessions. And I've heard some of our customers talk about changing the tires while the wheels are still going around, that kind of thing, because these are real-time operations. Sorry.
No, it's a great point, and this is where sometimes in the past, and I've done this many times myself, so it's something that of experience, or it's something experienced, is that you go in and you go to change, they've got this wonderful thing that we're going to bring in and you need to do this, but we won't be cognizant of the fact is that that's changed somebody's world, and we have to see what they do first to understand what that world looks like, to be able to put that change. And that change might be they can cope with a huge amount of change, or actually no, we have to spoon feed this in a little bit and we have to put stepping stones in to be able to do that. We may not be able to do that because that might be an organisational thing that says, right, we've got to do this. So how do we then mitigate or minimise that particular impact to that person at the end of the day? Because they're probably just coming in, they're dealing with 100 customers a day. The last thing they want is more product, more service, just put on top of.
Yeah, I mean, often our customers are asking us for advice for this. How big a change should we try to do on day one? Should it be a big bang? I try to avoid people using dual systems, but sometimes it can be necessary, or you gradually migrate work teams across depending on the market.
Absolutely, and the only way we do that is by going and seeing people how they do things today. Okay, so to ensure that we manage the change, we must communicate the threat of not changing. This is the reason why we're going to do it, and in particular, if we're talking about going into a digital world, information is key. And the reason for changing is we need to make sure that the real-time information is sitting on our systems, the reduction of paperwork, and we know one single point of access. And as Neil mentioned before, we haven't got this piece of paper stuck in desks. Where was that particular deal file? Where's that particular piece of information? Where does it sit? It's there. So the threat not to change in this particular example is because it needs to be in one central repository that we need to get instant access to that. And that can go across a number of products and services that we advise on. Again, the reason why we want to do it. This day and age, our manufacturers require leads to be dealt with within It used to be 24 hours, now it's probably 24 minutes. So how do we do that? We can't have bits of paper around the showroom. So there's loads of stores, I'm sure everyone on the call has seen it, when there's a showroom log. Okay, why do we need a showroom log? Because we've got no facility to be able to put this in, an efficient way of doing it. So there are lots of things that the reason for change and the communicating the threat of not to change. Involve the team in decision making, very important. Certainly when we go out and do the change management, is we don't always talk at the highest level of the business. Personally, when I go around, I want to go and sit with the service advisors, I want to go and sit with the parts advisors, I want to go and sit with the showroom and meet and greet people, I want to sit in reception, I want to sit in all the various areas around the business and to understand what people do. So involving people in decision making, sometimes it's top level down, you have to do this, okay, but there is an important thing of getting their input to say how we're going to do this. Minimize the uncertainty. The reason why we're doing it is to make people more efficient in what they do. We're not looking to reduce anybody, we're not looking to change anything too much, it's the uncertainty that we look to do. Always celebrating success. How many times we've been in projects where we've gone through a project change or a process change, product change as well, and at the end of it, at the end of the first 2 or 3 weeks or 2 or 3 months, everyone's absolutely dragging because we've not celebrated success. It's a given. So we have to celebrate each step of the process, that how people and how well people have done, and keep explaining the reason to change. At the start, everyone gets very excited about change. Everyone gets excited about something that's new. And as time goes on, people lose a little bit of faith. Sometimes, we've all been there where the software doesn't work, or particular things are bugs, software, whatever, changes, whatever. Just keep re-explaining the reason why we're looking to change this, and be transparent as possible. So how are we going to do this? Basically, we use a modelling, which is a sort of industry standard Lewis change model, and it's quite simple. We basically unfreeze, we change, and then we refreeze. So here's some various steps that we do for the 3 sort of change process steps. So in the unfreeze bit, we actually determine what it is we need to change. And this will give us a level of what we need to do from maybe a configuration layer, what do we need to do from people, what do we need to do from training, and what do we need for handhold, and what do we need to do to get the best out of the systems. Ensure there's strong support from upper management. We talked before about decision making. So we have strong support from the senior management, and that's not necessarily a dictatorial way of doing it, but we want people then to say there's a clear message, the reason why we're doing it, we have support from the upper management to do that. We've had plenty of experiences where the upper management really haven't believed in what needs to be done. It may be an OEM has mandated something. That's always a difficult position to do, because then you get the chaos side of things, the reason why we're doing it. So it's important that we get the upper support of the management. Create the need for change. Document why we need to change it, and that's purely probably a business case that we would look at. Manage, understand the doubts and concerns. So again, going around speaking to people. I've been in many sort of situations where you got people saying, "Oh, I'm not so sure this is going to work for us," etc. Have doubts, as we've mentioned before. So we need to, give confidence that this is going to work. We document the actions required. So whether it's an incident recently, we're going through some go lives in the Middle East at the moment. Effectively, the next site we're looking to go live, we've documented the actions required to do. We've documented some of the things we've already done at the previous site as well, and they document things afterwards. So we've actually, and probably just digressing slightly, when it hasn't gone particularly well because of whatever particular reason, is that we keep revisiting these things. So it's not, once we stop and gone through the refresh and lock that back in, it doesn't stop us revisiting this when something goes wrong. Okay, whether that's a particular bit of software that's not being delivered, whether it's a particular process that's not working, we can revisit this process and re-energize it to a certain extent, but keep going back to the documents required and redoing those documents. It doesn't stop. Design the training around the blueprint processes. Very important. This is when talking before about looking at specific training. If there's training needed, absolutely do it. If there's training is timing as well, sometimes we've been in situations where, and I'll take the example of a sales executive in a context where we would certainly recommend that training a sales executive is almost right on that change period. If we train them 3 weeks before, then we're into a retraining process where other areas of the business might say, and I'm talking about maybe finance areas, that training will be taken 3 weeks in advance because they would probably absorb it more than maybe sales executives. And that's not being discouraging or disparaging to sales executives, but they do a particular job that we have to recognise the change of those particular people is different to the change of other people. And that's massively important that we do that. So the training plan can't be a one size fits all. It has to fit. And again, how many times have we done training on generic systems, generic processes that we don't do on that Monday morning or Tuesday morning, Sunday morning that we go live? So the idea of the designing the training is specific to what they're going to do when they change. So when we do training, can we make sure that it replicates what they do rather than, well, here's a generic thing there. If you go and do that, that sort of gives you the framework to do it. No, people need to know exactly what they do when they switch over.
Paul, can I just ask about systems there?
Yep.
Because you're talking about very much making that training fit the context. And one of the tactics that we use at Arena is we will have a mirror system, which is exactly the same as the system that the customer will be using, which will have been tuned and configured to their needs. And we take them through the training with that as if they were doing real work. And then when actually they go back to their desks and do the real work, it looks the same. I mean, is that something that you do at Magna as well? Yeah,
absolutely. When you look at there is a need for some generic type of training, absolutely, to get a flavour of what it is. Then it has to be specific to them. And again, I'll take the example from the sales executive's point of view is, their training will be augmented on top of that by real life scenarios. So do it over go live. So there'll be a down period. Bring us your catch up information. Bring us your forward orders. Bring us your outstanding contacts. So what we train you on is actually getting you caught up, ready to go, but also on their real life data. So how many times we've been in training courses, I'll just make something up,
and then it doesn't fit. It doesn't reflect real world.
Exactly.
It's not good training.
Yeah.
Is it?
And then you look at training systems and you see some strange names on there and all sorts of different things. But make it as real as possible. That's what we try and do. Yes, there's times when we're piloting this and we don't get it right, but next time we would get it right. So if we're looking at a larger rollout, you're sort of defining what that deployment model looks like and the training model looks like, and almost working out who does what and when, but also making sure that it's very effective timing as well, because people don't have time. And they relinquish the training when that's the most important key.
Yeah, that's the availability piece coming back.
Absolutely.
And I really like the kind of the iterative. We're always learning from this. We're learning, the customer's learning. Absolutely. I've seen that go through. If you're deploying a solution to 160 sites, the training you do on the 160th is going to be better than the training you did on the first one. That's just the way it is. But we're going to evolve and learn through that, and we see this through projects. And sometimes you go back and you do the early ones, a little bit of a catch up because there's something you've learned that's really important.
Correct. Absolutely. So we try and align what we're doing from a group or OEM standards as well. So make sure that we're following those leads, because 9 times out of 10 there's probably a bonus built on the back of it. But that's not to go away from the fact of what the end user and the people using the software or processes would actually do. So during the change process, we communicate often. So regular meetings, regular conversations with people. The people who have sort of dealt with us before know that we're always on the trying to be on the shop floor as much as possible, seeing people, seeing what happens, because there'll always be a curveball that we need to do that. So we need to be on the shop floor to see that happen. Dispel any rumours. It's pretty self-explanatory. Empower the actions, making sure people understand what they're doing and say this is the reason why you're doing that. Again, involve the people in the process. I think a lot of the time we find is if you explain the reasons why, I think people do understand it rather than this, well, that's how you must do it. Regular project reviews and tracking, absolutely. Install a blueprint process. I think if we look at the various customers we've dealt with in the past, that's massive blueprint processing, because then we've got a standard to work towards and everyone's working towards it, and it's designed, if we've got time to do it, we'll probably design that with them, with everyone through the change management process. So it's not okay, you must do it this way, unless it's some sort of legal and fiscal, but actually we work with customers to say, let's break this down and see why we're doing it. Can we improve on that? It maybe not, we not improve it, but we then set to a standard that we know is consistent. Once we get to that point of every change being done, it's a great phrase, anchor the changes into the culture. Again, that's making sure that, you know, when we look at the future, we've got those things already in place and nothing changes from that. So we know we get a situation where we know how things are dealt with in all of our stores that we deal with. Develop ways to sustain the change. So, okay, people will change, people will move on. Manufacturers will bring in different processes and requirements from us. How do we do that moving forward? Massively important, again, provide support and training for the ongoing with coaching. Okay, we do get situations where people start using new software, new processes, and we go back and revisit and say, actually, there needs to be an improvement here. So you can put small sort of coaching packages in place to provide ongoing support and help to achieve getting the best out of that change. Again, celebrate the success. I've seen people throw parties. I've seen people who just sort of think that's the norm, and something that's been a major change to people's way of working.
I think that's a really key thing, because change is difficult, and efficient and getting this right is a major part of a project. Yep. If you don't celebrate it, people are like, oh, why did I work so hard for all that? Yeah. You know, a thank you is going to prepare them actually for the next change, which is going to come around. Just a comment on the Lewin thing. I mean, I like this as it's an easy change process to keep in mind. You know, create the need for the change, do it, and then make it permanent. You know, as somebody who's been through business school, I've seen change processes of at least 10 or 12 steps, and actually, that's great in academia. When actually it comes to the mud and bullets and doing this on the ground, oh, that's a whole different ballgame, and you need to have something which will, you know, help you to focus on that and put a little bit more flesh around this, which I think, you know, that's what we're going to be doing in the next little bit of the presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good point. To say that's probably the theory piece of it, is now the reality of situations about how we actually do that, because again, there's not one size fits all, and there's, you know, the guys on the line will know that, you know, those are the sort of project management people know that, you know, whether they're using Prince2, iTool, whatever, is there's a tool, you know, you take your toolkit, and, you know, you don't use all the toolkit when you go to these places. You use the toolkits or the tools out of the bag.
It's the skill of a practitioner.
Exactly. And you're not going to be a plumber that takes a big bag. You're not going to use all the tools to fix a particular leak or whatever. You utilize tools you need, and then adapt to what you need to do. And I think that's the big thing, that when we look at this, is about how adaptable and flexible we can be.
Yeah, it's making me chuckle, actually, because as a software guy, you know, one of the criticism of the software industry maybe is we try and use all the tools. Use the right ones.
And it's just, software houses inexperience would be, look at this lovely software I've built, and I want to make sure we do that. And what we try and do is, we're always in the hands of the software supplier in certain aspects, and there's some frustration sometimes around this and delays, and then what do we do? And we have to then, change management comes in a little bit further and say, what can we do this piece, and can we do that piece to be able to achieve what we need to do? And again, it might be a piecemeal way of doing it.
I mean, I like the way you've got it built into your process. You know, the software thing. Why are you doing that? Well, because we can, because it's exciting and wonderful. And actually, but if you go back to your business case, why are we doing this? What's the return on investment? Should we do this, rather than just we can? I think you're going to be your project's going to be in a good position to start with.
Absolutely. Good. So how do we do this? So again, going into a little bit level of detail, I'm not going to read all those sort of things. These are things that we would go in and do. So when we were engaged to go into change management, what we would do is I want to go and see how you deal with customers. So that's from the receptionist. So it's quite funny. Probably people see me sort of walking around stores, looking at things and watching things, thinking, what the hell is he doing? And you're getting a feel for, and no one can tell you whether it's on the phone or whatever. You get a feel for what a store is doing. So you go in, it depends how you're greeted and things like that. I want to see how the stores speak to their customers, treat their customers coming through the door. Do we have the big reception desks where someone's constantly on the phone, or do we have meet and greet people to experience what they're actually saying, how we're greeted, what they use, and then probably delve a little bit deeper into what they're doing from a system point of view. But primarily, we're not looking to catch anyone out. We would do it, show me how you book a customer in. So that could be a walk-in, telephone call, online booking, whatever. I want to see how people deal with that churn of what comes through the store. What do we do with a customer lead? We're all into being hit by our manufacturers to make sure we get those leads, get the leads, make sure you convert those leads and how quickly you convert those leads so you don't lose them to another manufacturer. Very, very key area. So how do we do that? I've seen places with, again, bits of paper. Well, this modern day and age, people, going around with iPads and putting information to iPads and situation like that. We're not there to sell iPads or Microsoft products or anything like that. We're looking at the best way of actually dealing with the customers as they come through the door.
It's got to be the right fit for the context and everybody getting what they want out of it. I'm smiling a little at the picture that we've got on that slide. That is actually from a dealership using our M-Store document management system, and you'll notice the absence of deal files or paperwork from any of those desks. And it's not actually a staged photograph. That was just taken during the day, and then we just checked with everybody they're okay for to show them. Yeah. But that's what it really looks like in a dealership that's gone down that paperless route. Yeah. Big change for them.
Yeah.
But they've done that.
No, and I think people sort of, it's like you said before, Neil, the people like the paper round is almost like the comfort blanket. And again, it's why do we need that when we've got the systems to do that and the confidence to do it? And sometimes it's the confidence of using systems, etc. But if you look at a particular picture, apart from the tray plates sort of on the front there, it looks a very clean environment to be. Some manufacturers are now taking those desks away as well, so it now becomes a coffee shop type activity when people are coming in. So they don't have the desk between them. Let's go and have a cup of coffee in the coffee shop. Take away the barriers. Sit down, nice and relaxed area. You've also got the situation where you want people who just want to rush in, get it done, and go. So again, it's how the stores are catering for the different type of customers that are coming in. The fast lane people, or I want to do the express check-in, to I want to sit down, I want to have teas and coffees, I want to experience this. So stores are very much moving towards those sort of things. And of course, if you have bits of paper, the last thing you do is move lots of bits of paper around. So that sort of augments where, certainly the manufacturers want to take this in the future as well.
Certainly, yeah. Mandate, lots of processes mandated as well. You're going to talk about GDPR and FCA in a moment, but there's actually data collection you have to do, and you have to keep that information secure. And occasionally as a mystery shopper or accompanying my wife buying a car, you can see some practices where you just wince a little bit. My wife had the experience of want to go for a test drive, take a photograph or a photocopy of her driving license, and the guy just puts it in a desk drawer. Right, we're off now. And as somebody who's looked at GDPR in detail and so you're like, are you going to lock that drawer? But you take that out and put a process in that's seamless for the customer. You have a much better experience. It put my hackles up. We didn't buy a car. Yeah.
And it's funny because that's the experience that you've had, and that's we're not looking purely at a system, process, whatever. We're looking at how the customers are dealt with, because you want to retain the customer. That's the biggest key. And when I've worked with a number of software vendors before, I think sometimes that loses sight of what we're trying to achieve from this. And that's where we would look at it purely from a customer. We heard it's a buzzword, customer journey. Everyone knows what this customer journey is, and it's about retention. It's about retention of customers, and any sort of new conquests that are coming in. How do you keep them? And these sort of things that we're looking at is trying to generate that.
Yeah, and you get that by going and seeing what it looks like.
Absolutely. Anyone says to me about change management, the first thing, let me come and see it. And then it comes, what about the cost? Don't worry about the cost, right? I'll come and do it for nothing. It's like, I want to get in there and I want to see what it is, because I can't advise if I don't see it. And yes, there are influences from the suppliers. Yes, there's influence from the OEMs. Yes, there's influence from the higher management to do this. But what we're trying to do is a series of questions that we will go through, standard questions about how you deal with the customer, how do you book them in, what's the touch points then of the customer, how do you then speak to your customer the day before they're going to come into the store, or don't you? How do you treat them when they come in? Because each time the information you have when a customer comes in, isn't it great that you know why they're coming in? So technology is going to give you that, but it's the people who's going to drive that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key.
Yeah. And as part of the change process, if the people who are having their world changed,
Yeah.
they're actually turning around and saying, "Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand why
exactly.
you're doing that." They're going to be much more receptive to that, aren't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we go through a series of process reviews. These are all documented out, and from that, again, it's not to catch anyone out. From that, we'd say, okay, what do we actually need to do this? And then we match then what the probably the configuration layer would do is probably on the next slide. Yeah, what do we do when we require change? So we look at the process, look at the people training, and the system configuration. You see, it's very much further down the line rather than the other way around. That should underpin what we do with the process and the people training. Regular reviews, absolutely no doubt we should be doing. So again, I know it sounds a bit sort of Excel spreadsheet checklist, whatever, but we ensure what happens is when we go through that particular change is people are competent in dealing with the system. Now that's not saying it's not a test, it's to make sure that effectively what's been installed is effectively what they can do from a day-to-day job. And again, it could be the configuration is not correct, it could be processes from or items from the senior management that needs to be put in place. It could well be bugs in the system. This is what the sort of the transitional bit of the handhold bit is in the middle is to work out. You know, we've all experienced weeks and weeks on end of a probably bad product. So I'm not trying to make that simplistic, as that's what needs to be done. It's how we then mitigate it, and probably this is where the regular reviews come back in place afterwards.
If I was going to say to the people attending the webinar, if there's one thing to take away, that regular reviews should
absolutely.
be right up there on your list. From our experience, Arena working on a project with Magna, and for the first time seeing actually the sign-off of competency to do the job.
Yeah.
First of all, you're thinking, "Ooh, are we being caught out as a software vendor here?" But actually, it was the Magna consultant actually making sure that the change had been effected.
Yeah.
That tomorrow our mutual customer can continue working effectively.
Absolutely.
And it's a really, really strong and powerful piece of the project. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. And again, from past experience of doing this, what tends to happen if we don't do that is we're then going back to our supplier and getting them back in on days and days and days and days and days, but with no aims. So what we try and do from a competency point of view is say, can you do your job? So sales executive, can you log into the system? Can you create an inquiry? Can you deal with your customer? Can you do a booking? Can you make a quotation? I'm simplifying the process, but do you have the ability to be able to do that? Absolutely. Otherwise, you just burn a whole lot of time and effort, and probably cost a lot of money to do that, rather than being very specific. Yes, it's going to throw out things very quickly and say, okay, so where's our challenge? We might need to do some quick retraining here. And so during a handhold, it could be, there's fixing some issues, but it's actually doing some quick snippets of, how-tos, certain parts of the system that we work with, doing duplicate quotations. So people are doing duplicate inquiries because they don't know how to do a duplicate quotation on one particular piece of the software. So it's quick wins like that would do that.
Yeah, and I found our customers, one of the good pieces of feedback we get for Arena and for MStore is that our speed of being able to change things and reconfigure things in response to those customer questions. And certainly the last project we worked on with Magna, we got things to change, and that's absolutely fine because the customer feedback is it was brilliant. You changed that, you made that change really quickly, and then it's done and it's part of the system, and they don't worry about it. The things that annoy people are when you don't change it. And they have to live with it for a number of weeks until there's a formal project review or something. So to be able to do this quickly and iterative is really important.
Absolutely, and we've done that. The certain customer that we dealt with, we went back and did the reviews probably a month, 6 weeks afterwards. We've probably done that a few times now, and then we came up with a top 10 list of things that these are things that are affecting what we do. Let's categorise where they are and let's hit those from top 10 list downwards. So again, lessons learned. Have we done it again? Probably, but we know what the steps are going to be. And in this situation, you don't need lots of documentation either. It's very, very bullet point. This is what we're going to do. Where's the action plan? How are we going to do it? Who's going to do it? Okay, when we do this, definitely prior to the system go live, obviously that's a given. During the optimization review and obviously any ongoing package review, as Neil said, that we're constantly reviewing these sort of things with our clients. So there's 3 stages and I've probably covered these off already. So the preparation, so all the change management pieces, training, configuration, getting ready for change. Then you have the technical bit, and I think this is where the success or failure tends to come out now in the actual technical migration piece. That's moving from where you are today to that go live point of view. And again, I've seen situations where people have tried to do too much. Make it as simple as possible. So we have some prerequisites, and we also have each sort of day, we have a list of things that we want to achieve, very, very simple things we want to achieve, again, from a competency point of view, but to make sure things are working in the correct way. And what it opens up, and we've been here on a few occasions, is if those things aren't done, why? It could be a product, so we need our suppliers to come and support that. If it's just a people thing, we can change it straight away, so we know what we can do. And the optimization is, again, realizable benefits. Pretty much that's just covering those sort of areas, review, update, and optimize as we go through. So just some sort of final sort of other considerations that I tend to look at, or as a business we tend to look at. A is competency, we've probably talked about that. People, massively important. But the value of training, again, probably mentioned that on a number of occasions, how that always gets stripped when it comes to a cost base. Yeah, just take the training out. We'll be okay. We'll worry about it on go live. Think about it from the impact of the people that are going to do that particular job, but also your customers. The onboarding and ongoing development coaching. Again, been situations where we put something in, and then obviously within a month there's new onboarding started. We had an example. One customer said, a sales manager actually said to me, "Oh, I've lost my senior user of the software. That means I've got to do that now. I'm getting hit all the time for targets, etc., etc. I'm not quite sure what to do. I've got 2 people I'm on board now, so I'm going to give them very, very minimal amount of sales coaching and system coaching." So I said, okay, so how does this sound then? I said, why don't we, not we, but why don't you consider getting in a specialist to come in 2 days a month? Firstly, they'll do your your sales coaching for your onboarding and also your current staff, but also they'll do some system sort of refresher training, etc., etc. And he said, well, that's going to cost me money. And I said, well, okay, that's fine, but it's costing you more by not doing it. And he said, you're trying to sell to a salesman. I said, no, I'm trying to give you the benefits of doing it because your time is vital. You're getting hit to hit your targets. So if you take that time away and know that someone's going to do that, otherwise you're going to be having staff that can't sell to the level that you want them to, and probably an O&M standard that want to do that. But then secondly, you're getting them to use a system that they're not going to be able to use. So invest in that time. And what they did, they said, absolutely. So this was a group, it's a group in the Midlands actually, in the UK, that then took somebody on who goes around specifically their about 20 stores on a regular basis doing exactly this. And that's not Magna picking up, that's basically advice that we've given to go and do. And I see this guy every now and again because he lives quite close, and he said that, that for me was brilliant. It takes away all that worry of doing it. I know everyone's to a standard, and then I can concentrate on what my job is as a sales manager. Okay, so just an example of ongoing development, on coaching in that particular way.
It's an interesting example. How did they measure the ROI? Because I was going through numbers there. If it's 2 days a month, which takes away the 2 days of work that the sales manager is going to do, that's 10% of that sales manager's cost, but then magnified up by all the different sites where it wouldn't have happened at all, or wouldn't have happened very well.
Yep.
So,
and then you've got the inefficiencies of are they selling in the right way? So do they lose deals? And more importantly, if they're not using the system to do things like diary management, if they're not using that correctly, that's meaning they're missing leads. So it's a combination of a number of things. If you plug them all together, they probably cost them £1,000 a month. But actually, the return on investment is probably three times as much as that, because the focus of the sales manager is to focus on getting the team to sell, and that's their role. And you can put that across the board into the service areas as well.
Okay.
Onboarding, shadowing, training is always questioned. What's the other example I had? Also, it's looking at again, revisit sometimes that new system and software has been put in place, and then all of a sudden they say, okay, GDPR is a good example. Let's put another product or process on top because it's not working. So people then, I have a very famous phrase, and apologies for this. People go around with a box of band-aids and put sticking plasters over problems. So that could be either put more people in or put another product on top to layer across it, and don't get into the actual reason why this is happening. And for an example, there's a GDPR where we're giving more systems to people to double check with customers coming in at the point of when they come into the store. So I've looked at this and said, that's fine, but there are 3 touch points we have before that point when we can talk to a customer when they're doing online bookings, whether they're doing calling to bookings. We're also probably checking 24 hours, 48 hours before that the customer's going to come into the store. There are 3 touch points that we have with the customer to ask about customer details and updating customer details. Why do we need to give something when they come into the store as well? And that just puts more burden onto sales executives, showroom, and service advisors. So there's a particular example recently we had when actually they didn't put this bit of software in and said, actually, no, let's go back to the fundamental process. Let's break it down so we don't put more cost into the business, but more importantly, we don't put more workload onto people. Let's reduce the workload by looking what it is and readdress what the process. So that's something that we look at as an ongoing process.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Massive amounts of information there, which I think is really, really actionable. I'll just very briefly summarise, because I want to leave plenty of time for questions at the end, because I can see we've had some flowing through here. But I've just been making a list of my takeaways from this. And first of all, there's the framework there. If you think about this as a 3-step, unfreeze, create the need for change, and create the need for change particularly in the minds of the people who are going to be changed or are going to experience, suffer the change. Then actually make the change, do the change, but then make it permanent afterwards, that it's not done when you've just switched on the new system. Then there are actions to take to make that change permanent, make it part of the culture and how people go about their work. I think some of the key takeaways are the preparation. Look at your processes, look at them from a customer's perspective, which might actually require somebody outside of your own organisation to do that, and look at it with fresh eyes. It's really difficult when you're close to it. Then get the training, get the buy-in from the people who are going through this change. Then you should be ready for that, hopefully seamless change, avoiding we've got a new computer system, please bear with me for half an hour while I sort out how to use that. You should take away that friction, those pain points from your customers, but make it stepwise, small changes, sessions which are manageable for your organisation in terms of availability of staff and how much they can take on in terms of change at one go. And then review and repeat. Go back around that loop. It's something we see with the MStore document management solution so often, where we will go and we will review and say, yeah, great, we've done that bit of change here. Let's do this. Can we do that? Can we do that? New ideas, and try to build momentum that way. I think that's really important. Okay, so that's my quick summary. Now for what I think will be a really good interactive bit, we'll get some questions here. I'm going to kick off here with one that's come through, and it's just a straight away the thorny one. Okay, what advice would you give dealing with, quote, difficult people? The people who've been doing something for 30 years, they're quite happy doing it that way for another 10 years, if you don't mind. I don't want to be changed. What advice would you give there, Paul?
I think, again, it's probably going back to sitting down and understanding what they're doing, and probably have some empathy around what they're trying to do today. But it's got to be benefit. There has to be benefit in for doing something. There's questions. I remember sitting down with a particular lady in vehicle admin one time when getting the deal files in, doing all the bits of paper, writing all the deal files in, then looking at the system to do that, and then booking through another system and then adding to another system. So I sort of asked the questions around trying to break it down and say, why do you do this? Just to explain what it is. And she goes, oh, that's the way I've always done it. And we've all heard that expression, that's the way I've always done it.
The most dangerous words in business, we've always done it that way.
We've always done it that way, that's what I got told to do. And I'm trying to probably put a sticking plaster over a problem. So again, it's probably breaking that down and saying, look, if we could do this and we could do that, and I think it's the way that it sort of spoke to can we get benefit to do this? And I think, yeah, you're still going to have probably some people are going to be even difficult until probably you need someone to say from a higher manager, well, this is the way we're going to do it. That's the ultimate way it's going to be. But I think what we try and do is go through the soft approach of sort of saying, let's look and see how we can make this better for you. I've had situations where I walked into a marketing department and the lady was sort of preoccupied, and I said, what's the problem? You know, you seem preoccupied. And she goes, I'm really sorry. She goes, I can't give you the time. And there's a situation where she goes, I said, what's happening? She goes, oh, I've got a big event coming up, but unfortunately I've gone through the database and I've sent out 7,000 invitations because I don't know what their interests are, and I'm worried that 7,000 people are going to turn up. And it was a case of, right, okay, let's break this down a little bit and say why we're not getting spent, because we weren't capturing some information. Can we put that into a process where we capture it to make your job a little bit easier and stuff like that? So again, there's some quick wins that we can do. So yeah, it's there's loads of examples of doing that, but I think it's the personal thing, speaking to the people, understand what the realisable benefit, understand and empathise with how they do things today.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a skill of the practitioner, you know, the change management person who's coming in and building relationships with individuals. But I really like to mention this earlier in the discussion, which is if you're walking in and you're looking at it and what you are saying makes sense in terms of the process change, and you're being really open, and sometimes you're saying, well, don't buy that expensive piece of kit because actually it's not going to deliver value.
Correct.
Or if you change your process and do it this way, you're going to have a high success rate of getting buy-in from the people who, even though they don't really want to be changed, they can see the sense in what you're asking them to do.
Exactly.
And you know, nobody's going to argue against the obvious, hopefully.
No. No,
sometimes,
that's right.
but not all.
Yeah, you do get that. I get another quick example. I remember we've been in the sales admin area, and there's, you know, talk about the sort of document storage and a number of other things. Is there was a constant flow of sales executives coming to the vehicle admin, and she kept on saying to me, "I'm really sorry, I can't give you the answers because the door was always opening, the phone was always going." So she locked the door. She goes, "No, I'll lock the door and stop them coming in." I said, "No, let them keep coming in because that's exactly what I want to see. Because if we can stop that flow where actually you're going the other way, let's work in a way of how we do that." And she went, "Oh, that'd be great if we could stop them coming in here." And it's an extreme sort of scenario, but by seeing that, then we can advise and say, right, okay, let's look at the process. If we bring a document storage sort of thing element coming in, they don't need to come and see you. They don't need to walk through the door. They can stay there and do their job from the desk, and that's probably the key sort of. And that's not any systems that are going to change or any software that's going to change that. That's the process of somebody walking through a door. How can we change that? So the difficulty is so you sort of win and influence friends, I guess, is really what it's trying to do.
I guess if you
state the obvious.
Yeah, if you can eliminate that step of somebody coming to you say, "Have you done it yet?"
Yeah.
Which actually just costs time for everybody, because if you'd done it, you'd have done it, and if you haven't done it, it's because you haven't got time. But now it's at the top of your pile because the person's hopping up at the end of your desk. You're going to win friends if you can take that out of the process. Question I've just seen come in here. So it says, I've got lots of different systems, each of which is doing their own bit in their own way. And I think this probably ties back to what you were saying there about the booking in and asking people for the details again. What advice or experience do you have about bringing systems together and maybe some of the more technical interfacing, but if we look at that from a process level, I think. Yeah,
again, it's when we're going in and looking and saying, what do you do? But then what systems do you use to do that? There are some software sort of houses that say that a one-stop shop. There isn't a one-stop shop. So you have to look at see how you integrate other areas. And it's probably what I mentioned before. Sometimes they see a problem and then they'll say, "Oh, I found on the market there's this particular bit of software. We'll put it on top." And then what you get is the layer of product that actually puts more process time in. When actually, if you strip it back, you don't actually need all those particular products because it's probably a process step. And then you need something, as we said before, a software to underpin it rather than be the software-led activity.
Okay. I mean, a question from me around the software piece. If you were, being the customer advocate that you are, what would you be looking for from a good software vendor or software supplier? What would your key points be that you're looking for us as a software organisation to deliver up?
Yeah, so it's a great question because it has to be, I think I've probably used the word before, someone who's adaptable. So it doesn't come in and say this is a very set way of doing something, because then that is trying to put the square peg into a round hole, but actually understand what we do. And what and please just take this into context, what we found is that some of the software vendors will come in and say, well, here's our lovely software, just put it in, it'll work.
Yeah.
But actually, that's where we come into the fore, because we say, how is that going to be done? Yes, the when is good, because there's sometimes delays to that. But how are we going to do this? How are we going to make this most efficient? So when we're looking, and yeah, there's times when we just have to go with certain things, and our software suppliers tell us that that's the way it's going to be, and we have no influence over that or control over that. Can we influence it? Probably.
Maybe part of a larger project,
yeah.
Manufacturer driven, for example.
Exactly. And what we try and do is say, break it down. Again, a recent example, been into a store in the UK, and they said, I put this new product in, which is another thing for a touch point for a customer. I'm going, forget the cost of doing that. Why are you putting another product on top of that, when actually, when you strip it back to the bones, you actually don't need that. And I think sometimes people just put it in because it's easier to just put another thing. And in fairness, from a software vendor point of view, we have to understand what the customer wants and then apply the correct, we mentioned before, the toolbox. There's plenty of products that vendors will have, or software vendors will have. We want to pick the right one. We sat down with a group in the Midlands, and we looked at 3 or 4 vendors and various things, and we probably put a package together that suits what they need. Now, we're not connected to those companies. It's just what we see in the marketplace, and say, well, actually, if you use this, and this will give you a package of products and processes that will fit what you want, rather than giving you 100 products and go on, keep going, keep buying this stuff 'cause it's all good. And then it becomes the CFO business saying, why are our costs of IT so high? Because we've got this product, got that product. How can we rationalise it? Then they start stripping it back to the bone. Yeah,
I mean, we always try to think of the M-Store document management solution as a solution, not a product. Yeah. I've yet to see one of our customers who bought it because, hey, I've got to have M-Store in my life. Yeah, I'd love it if they did, but actually they want to solve a problem with that piece of software.
That's the key, because you're adaptable in what you're trying to do as well. You're not rigid in the way you're doing it. You're very adaptable in what needs to be done. That's how we've seen it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I think we've got time for maybe one question before we just wrap up and keep to our hour's timeline here. What about getting management buy-in to support the process? I mean, often you can get management buy-in for a project. Fantastic, your project's gone to board, it's been signed off. But what about the after, during the change process? What sort of tactics? I personally, I've seen great projects where we've got management buy-in throughout the delivery of the project. And I've seen some fairly poor ones where management has said, right, we've signed the order, off you go.
And that's exactly what tends to happen. At the start of it, there's a big euphoria. They said, look what we brought. We brought this nice brand new. That's great. It's great. Come on, guys. And then within a week, there's a loss of interest. So we try and look at it from the point of view. This is around the sort of projecty stuff as well, and the people on the phone who will know that this is where you look at your key stakeholders. So the key stakeholders have to be in place to do this, and it's keeping those key stakeholders satisfied. And probably it's the communication piece. Communication of keep going back, and just from past experiences, probably because I don't mind saying things, is probably just keep going back. If there's a problem, go back to the people at the top and say, look, this is happening. And it's not to, what's the right words to say, is to criticise the people. It's to make sure that there's still that focus going at the top level. And sometimes that does, because they're very busy doing other things, and they might delegate to somebody else. That's okay. If you're going to delegate to somebody else, delegate the authority, not just the responsibility. Yeah. And very often in projects, you'll see is, well, I've got all the responsibility, but no authority to actually carry this out. So I have to keep going back to the main board or to another sort of project board to do this sort of thing. Give people authority to do the job.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, I've seen a great project recently where we had a very, very senior person within the business who was not attending all of the meetings, but being available enough that everybody knew that actually their presence is being felt. Yeah, and also it's a really great culture for that organisation, because I've had some senior people come around and say, actually, I quite like to know what's going on. Can I get involved, please? Which said great things about that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to wrap up now then. Because we've just gone over the hour, but thank you to everybody for attending. Thank you especially, Paul. It's been brilliant talking to you this morning. I'm sure we could actually go on for much longer just discussing change management, and really love to. We've had a number of questions come through here which we haven't had time to cover, so apologies if your question didn't get asked live here. What we'd like to do is, and if Paul's available to do this, we'll do some follow-up. We'll share the webinar recording, but also we'll pull some of the questions together and do some blog or some social media around that, just so we can cover the points that we didn't have time for this morning. But thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the day wherever you are in the world, and thank you again.